Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Alison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Cycles of Time. This is your forecast for April 6th to 15th, and this is week 3 in the wheel of the year. And there's a full moon this week, and the sun is transiting through the gates of growth and shock in the human design wheel of the year. So this is a full moon of shocking growth. Right now, spring is stretching its limbs and shaking off the last chills of winter. I'm really feeling like the light has changed. It's kind of lingering a little bit more each evening, going on a lot of bike rides with my daughter, walking around the neighborhood and seeing little sprouts popping up. The rose bushes are unfurling, and the air feels different too right now. Not just the physical sensations of the air, but I feel like with all of the transitions after eclipse season and Neptune moving into Aries, there's a certain just different charge to the air right now. It feels charged with a certain possibility, despite everything that's going on. I feel like each year Aries season arrives to push everything forward, and it's always a little more uncomfortable than I think it's going to be. But with eclipse season and Venus and Mercury both retrograde and Neptune dramatically changing signs from the end of the zodiac to the beginning of the zodiac, this past few weeks have definitely felt like moving through a pretty dense fog. I don't know about you, but it's been feeling very, very soupy. Retrogrades and eclipses, as well as any activation of Neptune, have a way of making us second guess and replay and retrace our steps. So this week, the tide is shifting a little bit. Hooray. We're in the third week of the Wheel of the Year, and this week we're standing on the eastern direction in the medicine wheel, which is the direction of childhood and new beginnings. In the Taoist Wuxing 5-element cycle, wood is the element of the season, reminding us that vertical growth is both inevitable and unpredictable. Wood can sometimes be a steady and slow growth, like roots deepening into the earth, and other times it can be wild and sudden, like a vine climbing toward the sun almost overnight. So we're in that moment now where everything is starting to move again, but not yet at full speed. Spring takes some time to unfurl, right? I did a breathwork session the other night with my Embody the Revolution members. If you become a paid member on Substack, you get access to breathwork sessions every month that are related to the zodiac season, as well as weekly somatic practices on Substack and a whole bunch more. So last week we did our first breathwork session, and the theme was unfurling, because I was really noticing in the world around me and all of the plant life and the people and animals, just kind of this sense of opening up slowly, kind of like a fern that's just like stretching itself out and kind of wanting to move full speed ahead, but taking its time. We're taking our time right now with Mercury and Venus having been retrograde, but this week they're waking up, and we have the full moon in Libra this week as well, which is the first lunation that is out of the eclipse portal. So that's happening this Saturday. And in human design this week, the energy of the sun is moving from gate 51, which is known as the gate of shock, into gate 42, which is known as the gate of growth. So these are Aries season gates. that are really about kind of forward momentum. We started Aries season with the gates of innocence and opinions, and then last week was the gate of the hunter. And those are, yeah, with each step, each gate of Aries season, that ram is stepping into more of its own agency and autonomy. And this week, the gate of shock is kind of that energy of, this newborn lamb growing up and kind of having its first realization of what is happening in the world, what the world's really all about, having a little bit of a shock. So we'll start with Mercury and Venus stationing direct this week. Mercury stations direct in Pisces on Monday, April 7th. And clarity, again, isn't going to return all at once. It feels like Mercury retrograde is navigating a dream world, especially in Pisces, and in terms of how we communicate. And we don't always necessarily have a clear path in that regard. There's a lot of reviewing. And so this direct motion, it'll feel like waking up from a deep sleep. I've mentioned this a few times over the past weeks, like this Pisces Aries cusp that we're on is really, like coming out of dream world and waking up. And sometimes you just want to pop out of bed and just the dreams fade away. And other times you want to kind of stay there and linger on them a little bit. But the messages can still be foggy. I have a lot of dreams, and oftentimes, like, they'll pop up at a random time. And I'll be like, whoa, I couldn't remember that dream until I saw something in the world, and then it all comes flooding back. So it's not a very conscious place. Mercury stationing direct in Pisces is still has a dreamy element to it, even though it's moving forward again. And so the words might not come out right. You might kind of still stumble over clear thought processes. And so, Mercury in Pisces doesn't deal in logic or sharpness or precision. It's more a communication of symbolism and kind of whispering in the language of intuition. So I always find that Mercury retrogrades in water signs are the hardest to untangle, and the hardest to kind of make sense of. I have Mercury in Virgo where it's at home. Mercury is also at home in Gemini, which are very, communicative signs that are a lot about language. Whereas Pisces, again, speaks in symbolism and in art forms and in dreams. So Mercury is not necessarily comfortable there when the mind is wanting a clear, delineated answer, and the lessons are instead coming in feelings and in moments of quiet realization, kind of like that remembering a dream, rather than a linear, direct understanding. So if you've been waiting for the answer or clearer communication, it may arrive slowly, kind of in a piece by piece format. And the best thing to do right now as Mercury stations direct is to trust your intuition and trust your body that you already know more than you think you do. So Mercury direct, I'm going to be flying the day before it stations, which I try not to do, but I'm going on a little trip to Panama with my family. And I'm excited about that. It's my parents' 75th birthday, and they're both Aries. And so we're celebrating with a adventure bird watching trip. So let's go Mercury in Pisces. At the end of the week, this upcoming week on Saturday, April 12th, Venus, who has been retrograde for a while now, 40 days, is going to be stationing direct in Pisces as well. And this is a big shift, especially in the matters of love and creativity and what we value and our self-worth. Venus retrogrades are personal retrogrades. And I don't know how you felt over the past 30 some odd days. Venus retrogrades tend to stir up old wounds regarding self-love and how we feel received in the world. And they can resurface past loves, past relationships that are these places that help us learn about ourselves and make us reevaluate what really brings us joy, what we value deeply. It can shift a lot during Venus retrogrades as we reconsider kind of just the linear path we've been on. So as Venus moves forward this week, things might begin to soften a little bit, those lessons integrated into your world. Relationships could have a new sense of clarity, and your emotional wisdom could start to flow again in a more forward momentum. So again, when any planet station's direct, it doesn't rush forward. There's always a period where it's kind of lingering in that space and making sure that we have learned what we needed to during that reflection, reassessment period that the universe gifts us every couple of years. So if something ended during this retrograde, this Venus retrograde, trust that it was meant to. And if something new begins, let it unfold naturally. Love in all its forms is finding its way back to us. And I'm really excited that both of these planets are going to be stationing direct, truly. Mars retrograde led right into Venus retrograde this year, and then Mercury came right on its heels. And so it's just been all the inner planets have been traveling backwards and making us slow down and review. So now it's time to move forward. And with that, the gate of shock is the human design gate that the sun is transiting through from Saturday, April 5th through Thursday, April 10th this week. And, shock. What else can I say? It's very evocative. It is the feeling of thunder cracking across the sky, huge lightning bolts illuminating silhouettes all around us and shaking the ground beneath our feet, perhaps. The Gate 51, Gate of Shock, is known as awakening in the I Ching, and it is the two trigrams thunder over thunder. So makes sense. It's a thunderous double hexagram, double trigrams to make that hexagram. And it's a force of initiation. It's a moment where everything can change quite rapidly. In human design, in the human design body graph, the gate is in the heart center, and that is a place where courage and willpower live. The shock that we feel in our hearts with thunder over thunder is not a gentle sensation. It doesn't ask for permission. It arrives kind of unannounced and breaks us out of our routines and pushes us into new territory. It's kind of like the story of the ram, which I tell every week, going through the 6 human design gates of Aries season. We were in the gate of the hunter, which was about discovering our own autonomy, kind of growing some horns and setting out into the world with our own agency and our own ideas of what we wanted after gathering many people's opinions the week before and being birthed into a state of innocence the week before that. And so with the gate of shock, it's like as the ram, we are the ram, but as we put our horns out into the world and announce our agency, we're going to run into some challenges. And so that can come as a shock if we're coming out of a place of innocence and thinking that things should work and do work in a certain way. Sometimes a sudden event can jolt us awake, and it does happen in our heart center. It's this place of just like, whoa, you feel it in your heart when you see a lightning bolt across the sky, or when you have a really distinct experience that shakes you a little bit. So it can also be an internal shift, more of a realization that hits you like lightning and kind of changes the perspective, the lens through which we're seeing everything. So in the gene keys, the energy of gate 51 follows the trajectory of the shadow of agitation to the gift of initiative to the city of awakening. And at its lowest shadowy expression, it is pure restlessness. It kind of makes us uneasy and reactive and on edge, running into something that we don't think the world is going to be like. And so that can make us feel really agitated. There's a certain sense of just not wanting to be shocked by the world. But if we can release that feeling of agitation, that kind of lens of agitation, and embrace the movement and kind of take initiative to step into the unknown instead of resisting it, shock can become a force of transformation. Truly, we all know this. We've all had times in our lives where when we take initiative based on something that's uncomfortable, we recognize that it's catapulting us into a better position, somewhere that we want to be, instead of fighting against how we think things should be. So, at its highest frequency, gate 51 has a moment of awakening. It's known as awakening in the I Ching as well. I've really learned to respect the energy of this gate. I can think back to years past when I've experienced gate 51, this middle part of Aries season, where you're coming into a new season, springing forth into the world, having a lot more social interactions usually than we've had over the winter. And so you're going to run into some uncomfortable kind of sensations. So if something unexpected happens this week, you can ask yourself, what is this waking me up to? Like, what lessons is this giving me about how this new cycle is showing up? Because it's inevitably different than the last cycle that we were in. Last winter, last fall, last summer, last spring. We're in a new cycle. So hopefully that energy at the beginning of the week, the word shock can feel shocking. Thunder over thunder can feel like a little bit of tension surrounding that. But it's this recognition that we can move through it and have awakening to help us be awake for this coming year, to the types of things that we need to be awake for. So starting April 11th through the 15th, we're moving through gate 42, which is the gate of growth. The sun's transiting there. And it's really that idea that after shock, growth begins. That is connected to the energy of completing something you started. So again, our little ram is off looking at the world, gathering opinions, poking his horns out, going off on his own adventure, running into a little bit of a shock from the external world that's not exactly how he thought it would be. And then we run into this sense of resolve with the gate of growth. That's this desire to keep on moving past it despite the discomfort of the shock. And in the I Ching, this is hexagram 42, known as wind over thunder, also known as increase. And with this energy late in the week through the weekend, we move beyond that initial jolt of awakening to the new reality of the cycle and into a more steady process of expansion. The leaves have unfurled now and they've reached some limits. They might have had a hard frost in the middle of April, for example, at least where I live. And so in the ecological world, there's lots of similarities as well, where we are kind of met with a little bit of a hurdle, perhaps, and then right after that, ready to kind of get going into the growth of the year. So in human design, this gate sits in the sacral center, which is the source of sustainable energy. It's the generator center. It's the place where we can tap into our inner resolve. And growth is not just about starting something new in this case, but it's about seeing things through and fully experiencing, like pushing through whatever hurdles or shocks that life has placed in front of us. In the Gene Keys, this is described as the journey from the shadow of expectation to the gift of detachment to the city of celebration. And the shadow side of this energy is waiting for life to match a specific vision and having rigid expectations about things, how things should be. And that's very similar to the gate of shock, right? Both of these have this really like the shadow level is clinging on to ideas of how the past cycle was and recognizing that there is newness in this year, in this whatever cycles that we're tracking. There's newness every time, but sometimes we enter that and think like, oh, I know how a situation needs to unfold. And so there's resistance when it doesn't work exactly how we think it's going to. So a big shift happens when we release an expectation here and really detach from assumptions and allow life to surprise us. And that is how we grow. So when we stop clinging to what we thought we wanted, we can make space for something even better, which is definitely something to celebrate. And that's the city level, is celebration, which is this release of rigid expectations. So this week, it's more of what we've been talking about for a little while, which is letting go of needing to control the outcome and trust that growth is happening, even if it doesn't look like what you expected it to. So that is the two human design gates of the week. There is forward momentum, a little bit of shock, a little bit of slowness with Mercury and Venus stationing, but then there's some forward momentum this week. And that leads us to Saturday, April 12th, full moon in Libra. And this full moon is the first full moon that is not an eclipse. The past couple of moons, the new moon and the full moon before that, were eclipses. So welcome. We've made it to the first non-eclipse lunation this season, and that feels really nice. Full moon in Libra always cast light on this balance point between holding on and letting go, between relationality and agency. It's again a full moon, so the sun is in Aries and the moon is in Libra, which really highlights the polarity between these two different opposite areas of the sky and different seasons, right? So being in the season of spring emerging, we're reflecting at this full moon the season of fall, of summer turning into fall in Libra season. And so Libra is often thought of as the sign of harmony and beauty, but its true lesson is really discernment. It's the scales. And so this full moon kind of puts on the scales what is worth preserving and what has run its course in our lives. And it brings us face to face with that question, and it really highlights where we cling to the past and where we have to embrace the cycles of change. Libra season, it's kind of like, let's cling on to summer. I don't want the leaves to fall yet, right? Let's revel in what has been. Where on the opposite side of the sky, Aries is lurching forward into this new growth potential and really recognizing that we're in a new cycle again. And so there is this polarity that we're witnessing during this full moon. In human design, it lands in Libra's gate 32. So the moon is in gate 32, the gate of continuity. This gate is located in the spleen center in the human design body graph, which has the energy of endurance and instinct. It's like our primal instinct, the spleen. And it also carries a lot of fear gates in that center, where we have a kind of a fear of failure. So this gate is deeply connected to the past. It's connected to ancestral wisdom and tradition and holding on to what was, about holding on to what's valuable. Libra is ruled by Venus, and so it is a sign that really considers values. That's again justice, the scales, like what is valuable in the world. And also a lot of justice oriented issues and themes come up, asking kind of what has been proven and what has stood the test of time. So this middle gate of Libra is really all about recognizing the tried and true and what has been placed on the scales before. But the shadow of this gate where the moon falls is fear. And it's the fear that change will lead to loss, and what we build into the future will not last, and that growth ultimately is uncertain. So across the wheel, the sun will be in gate 42 on this day, and that is the gate of growth, which is located in the sacral center, like I said, in the body graph. So we have the spleen and the sacral. And this gate, again, is about completing cycles and embracing expansion and trusting this process of evolution. So gate 32, the moon here in Libra, is really about holding on and recognizing the tried and true of the past, where the sun on the opposite side is urging us to move forward and not dwell on the past, but instead push toward the future and ask us to finish what we started and allow life to unfold and unfurl fully. So the highest expression of 42, like I mentioned, is celebration, which is really just the ability to release expectations and embrace the unknown, the new cycle. So this full moon is going to illuminate the tension between the preservation, what we know, and expansion into the great unknown. It highlights the kind of polarity between instinct and experience. Gate 32 is kind of saying, be careful. Like, will this last? Is this going to stand the test of time? And gate 42 is saying, well, you never know unless you allow it to happen and experience new things. So, this week, some questions to ask yourself are, where in your life are you hesitating to move forward because of past fears and patterns, things that have happened in the past? And where are you holding on? What are you holding on to that is keeping you from stepping fully into the next cycle, the next chapter of your life? This lunation is a turning point as we reach the first full moon of Aries season, the first polarity of the year. And the sun is really encouraging us to trust the natural cycles of growth, especially after that gate of shock, to know that sometimes you are going to run into obstacles that aren't familiar and haven't happened before, but that is really truly how we grow. So we have to remember that some things have to come to completion so that new things can begin. The moon in gate 32 is reminding us to honor the wisdom of experience and to move forward with awareness, not recklessness. So, together, as the moon mirrors the sun, they ask us to walk the line and connect the dots between respect for the past and faith in the future. This is a deep moon, not a moon of acting impulsively, but of deep recognition, just a knowledge that something in your life is ready to be completed and expanded or restructured, and the time is now. So, the wisdom is within you. You don't need a checklist necessarily, but the wisdom of the past lives within you as well as that desire for the future. So it's really finding that balance point this week, and full moons can help us integrate things that seem like opposites but really carry a similar theme of how we relate to the world, how we relate to ourselves within the larger relational world. So this week carries the energy of transition. Mercury and Venus are shifting forward, and again, not full speed ahead yet, still unfurling from their retrograde time. And these human design gates of shock and growth are guiding us through the week, with maybe some big lessons that help us awaken to what it is that we need to start to embrace on this new cycle of the year and larger cycles of time. So, yeah, and we end up with the full moon in Libra at the end of the week on Saturday. That's really asking us to find balance between what we know from the past and what we desire for the future. So, as for me, I've learned that moments like this, when the energy is changing and stationing, but not yet locked into a certain rhythm, are where so much magic happens. So, if life feels uncertain right now, trust that the pieces are falling into place. And if you're feeling shocked or shaken this week, know that awakening is often uncomfortable at first, but can be really beneficial in the future. So, if something is ending in your life or you're being called to a new adventure, remember that growth follows that. And we can't hold on to the sides of this stream. You know, we're flowing down this stream of life, and if we cling on to the reeds at the side, we'll end up getting beat up by the flowing river around us. But if we just go with it, we can flow where it wants to take us. And so this week, let yourself release expectations and move with that current. We are in the flow of spring. We are in that upward growth of wood. We are in this innocence of childhood in the eastern direction of the medicine wheel, and really embracing that kind of innocence that lingers despite our desire to inject our agency into the world. We still have to be be influenceable by what wants to arise right now. And this, we're in a very new energy of the world and of life. So let yourself be surprised. Don't cling on to the past. And I'm sending you shock waves of love and care and growth this week. And I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful week ahead. One little announcement here at the end. I'd love you to join the club. It's getting fun in here. Paid subscribers on Substack are known as Embody Their Revolution members. And this is a membership where you get weekly somatic practices, a video each week, just a short one, 5 minutes, a really cool PDF workbook that I put together for each zodiac season, which includes all of these different cycles and some background on them, as well as journaling prompts to work through the season kind of on your own pace, but have some reflections as the weeks go by. And then I also do monthly breathwork journeys that are related to the theme of this season. And I'm going to start doing community reflection sessions where everyone can gather and chat about how the season has shown up. So it's really fun. There's a good number of us in there now, or it's growing, and I really would love you to join. So you can sign up at astrosomatics.substack.com or find it on my website at astrosomatics.com and learn more about walking the wheel of the year in community and just deepening into this practice that has been so, so deeply profound for me. And thanks again for being here. You can find me on my website at astrosomatics.com. I'm going to be out of town for the next couple of weeks, but I will have some bookings available for readings and breathwork sessions. And on Instagram, you can find me at Cycles of Time Podcast or astro.somatics. I'm also occasionally on YouTube. And, Substack is kind of where I'm hanging out the most. So don't forget to click the subscribe button wherever you're watching this or leave a comment. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and your hopes and your dreams as we deepen into this spring season. See you all next week. Bye.